Liam Carter had never been one to pick fights. He believed in minding his own business, keeping his head down, and working hard. His family's farm had stood on this land for over a century, passed down from one generation to the next, surviving droughts, storms, and even an economic downturn or two. But there was one thing Carter Farms had never faced before: an HOA Karen. For years, Crestwood Estates had been nothing more than an empty patch of land. Then developers came in, turning it into a picture-perfect suburban neighborhood full of cookie-cutter houses, pristine sidewalks, and a strict homeowners association that controlled every detail down to the acceptable shades of exterior paint. At first, Liam paid no mind to the new development creeping closer to his property. Let them have their manicured lawns and pastel-colored houses. He had fields to plow and livestock to tend to. But the trouble started when Karen Whitmore moved in. Karen wasn't just any homeowner. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, the kind of person who got a rush from enforcing rules and sending out fines for the pettiest infractions. In her mind, Crestwood Estates was her kingdom, and every blade of grass, every parked car, every trash bin was under her rule. And now, her sights were set on Liam's farm. The first time she appeared at Carter Farms, she came striding up the dirt driveway like she was marching into battle, her beige pantsuit crisp and immaculate, a clipboard clutched tightly to her chest like a weapon. Liam, sitting on his porch with his morning coffee, watched her approach with mild amusement. "You must be Mr. Carter," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. Liam raised an eyebrow. "Depends who's asking." Karen's tight smile didn't waver. "I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the Crestwood Estates Homeowners Association." She paused, as if expecting that title to carry some kind of weight. When Liam didn't react, she continued, "I wanted to discuss some concerns regarding your property." Liam leaned back in his chair, not sure what there is to talk about. Karen took a deep breath, clearly preparing for a speech. "We've had multiple complaints from the residents of Crestwood Estates regarding the aesthetic impact of your farm, your red barn, for example. Have you considered repainting it in a more neutral color, something that blends better with the neighborhood?" Liam smirked. "Blends? My barn's been standing for 60 years. Crestwood's been here what, 5? Karen's lips pressed into a thin line, but she recovered quickly. "We're also concerned about the noise pollution. Residents have mentioned that your rooster has been waking them up before sunrise. It's quite disruptive." Liam took a slow sip of his coffee before answering. "It's a rooster. That's what they do." Karen's fake smile was starting to slip. "And then there's the smell. The presence of livestock so close to a residential area is, well, it's affecting property values. We need to find a way to make your farm more compatible with our community standards." Liam couldn't hold back a chuckle. "Lady, I'm not in your HOA." Karen stiffened. "Technically, no. But your farm is adjacent to our neighborhood, and it does affect us. We'd hate for this to become a bigger issue." Liam set his mug down and stood, towering over her. "And I'd hate for you to waste any more of my time. My farm isn't part of Crestwood Estates, and I don't answer to your HOA. So, unless you've got something real to say, I suggest you see yourself out." Karen's eyes flashed with irritation, but she forced a tight smile. "Very well, Mr. Carter. I only hope we can resolve this amicably." She spun on her heel and marched back toward her SUV, but Liam wasn't fooled. He'd seen that look before. She wasn't giving up. And he was right, because the war was only just beginning. The letters started showing up a few days later, official-looking documents stamped with the Crestwood Estates HOA logo, filled with legalese meant to sound intimidating. Each one demanded that Liam comply with community standards and address a growing list of violations. Liam tossed them straight into the trash. Then came the complaints, filed anonymously to the county. Someone, who could it be, had reported his farm for excessive noise, environmental hazards, and improper livestock management. The first county inspector showed up on a Tuesday afternoon, clipboard in hand, looking vaguely annoyed before he even stepped out of his truck. "Mr. Carter," he greeted, flipping through some paperwork. "We received a complaint about possible zoning violations." Liam wiped the sweat from his brow and leaned against the fence. "Let me guess. Someone from Crestwood Estates." The inspector hesitated. "Can't say for sure." Liam smirked. "You don't have to. Let me save you some time. I've had this farm in my family for 3 generations. My zoning's solid, my permits are in order, and I've passed every inspection this county's ever thrown at me." The inspector looked around, scanning the well-maintained property before sighing. "Yeah, that's what I figured. Just had to check." By the time the third county official showed up that week, they weren't even pretending to take the complaint seriously anymore. An older man named Roger shook his head as he stepped out of his truck. "Liam, I don't know who you pissed off, but they've got us running in circles." Liam chuckled. "Wouldn't happen to be a certain HOA president, would it?" Roger rubbed his face. "I can't officially confirm that. But off the record? Yeah, her name's on every single complaint." Liam laughed. "She's really that determined?" Roger sighed. "Seems like it. But as long as your farm's in compliance, she's got nothing. We'll keep checking, but there's only so much nonsense we're willing to entertain." Liam watched as Roger climbed back into his truck and drove off, shaking his head. Karen wasn't just trying to make his life difficult. She was trying to bury him in legal nonsense, hoping he'd give up and sell. She'd underestimated him. Liam wasn't going anywhere. A few days later, Liam was out repairing a section of his fence when he heard something strange. A chainsaw. He set down his tools and followed the sound, his stomach twisting with suspicion. When he reached the edge of his property, his blood ran cold. A group of hired workers were putting up a steel privacy fence on his land. And there, supervising with that same smug look on her face, was Karen Whitmore. Liam stormed over. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Karen turned, feigning innocence. "Oh, Mr. Carter, we're simply installing a community improvement project." Liam pointed at the fence. "On my land?" Karen's smile was sickly sweet. "Actually, we believe the property lines were drawn incorrectly. Until that's sorted, we're proceeding with the installation." Liam turned to the workers. "You boys got a permit for this?" One of them hesitated. HOA said they had all the legal stuff sorted." Liam smirked. "They don't. And if you don't pack up and leave in the next 5 minutes, you're trespassing." Karen's smugness evaporated as she watched the workers exchange nervous glances before quickly packing up. She was losing control, and everyone in the neighborhood was starting to notice. Liam had seen some outrageous things in his time, but nothing quite like this. A for sale sign. Not just any sign, but a massive, professionally printed real estate sign staked right in the middle of his property, as if someone had the authority to put his land on the market without his permission. And beneath it, a second, smaller sign that read, "Under negotiation. Coming soon. Crestwood Estates expansion." Liam stood there for a long moment, just staring at the audacity of it. He even reached out and gave the sign a little tug, just to make sure he wasn't hallucinating. But no, it was real. And there was only one person bold and stupid enough to try something like this. Karen. Not even 5 minutes later, the sound of a familiar engine hummed in the distance. Right on cue, her pristine white SUV rolled up to the property line, kicking up a bit of dust as she pulled to a stop. She stepped out, her usual smug expression in place, her clipboard clutched tightly in one hand as she adjusted the cuffs of her blazer like she was about to deliver a corporate presentation. "Oh, Mr. Carter, you've seen the sign," she said with the kind of fake surprise that made Liam want to laugh. He folded his arms. "You want to explain why the hell there's a for sale sign on my land?" Karen tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Oh, that. It must have been a simple misunderstanding. You see, we've been in discussions about expanding Crestwood Estates, and a few realtors may have mistakenly assumed that your farm was part of the available property." Liam smirked. "Mistakenly assumed, so they just accidentally ordered a custom-printed sign, drove out here, and planted it in the middle of my land." Karen cleared her throat, ignoring the sarcasm. "Well, you have to admit, your farm is a bit of an outlier in this area. It's only natural that people would assume you're looking to sell." Liam took a step forward, his smirk vanishing. "Let me make this real simple for you, Karen. If I see another one of these signs, I won't just be tearing it down. I'll be suing the HOA for fraud." Karen's fake smile faltered for just a moment before she forced it back into place. Now, Mr. Carter, let's not be hasty." Liam reached out, ripped the sign straight out of the ground, and tossed it onto the gravel driveway like it was garbage. "Oh, I ain't being hasty," he said. "I'm giving you one warning." Karen's eyes flickered with frustration, but for once, she didn't argue. She just spun on her heel, marched back to her car, and drove off in a huff. She was losing control, and Liam could see it. But something told him she wasn't done just yet. Because people like Karen, they never know when to quit. Liam had dealt with his fair share of stubborn animals before, but Karen was quickly proving to be the most relentless of them all. Since the county wouldn't shut him down, and since fake real estate signs weren't enough to scare him off, she switched to another tactic: complaints. And not just the usual petty HOA complaints, she got personal. Handwritten letters started appearing in his mailbox, each one dripping with passive-aggressive hostility. None of them were signed, but Liam didn't need a detective to figure out who was behind them. "Your farm's smell is tanking our property values. Be considerate of your neighbors. Children in our community shouldn't have to see unsightly farm animals. Please consider fencing them off. A well-kept lawn is a sign of respect. Mow your fields or expect further action." Liam laughed when he read that last one. She wanted him to mow his fields. Did she think he ran a golf course? But the letters weren't just annoying, they were proof. Karen was grasping at straws, running out of ways to pressure him. And Liam decided it was time to fight back. The first step? Some good old-fashioned petty revenge. Since Karen had made it very clear that she hated his rooster's morning crowing, Liam figured he might as well double down. So he bought 3 more. Every morning at the crack of dawn, a full choir of roosters now greeted Crestwood Estates with an enthusiastic, ear-splitting wake-up call. But he didn't stop there. Karen had called his farm an eyesore compared to the HOA's pristine lawns. So Liam went out and planted an entire field of bright yellow sunflowers, right along the property line, completely blocking the perfect view of Crestwood Estates. And then, for the finishing touch, he decided to go even bigger. Karen wanted to make his farm a nuisance? Fine. He'd turn it into the most public, most lively place in town. The first farm festival was held on a Saturday. Liam put up flyers all over town. Free entry. Bring your family, pet the animals, enjoy fresh produce, live music, and home-cooked food. And it was an instant hit. Dozens of families showed up, kids running around with baby goats, parents buying fresh eggs and milk, and a local country band playing live music on the front porch. The best part? The entire thing was completely legal. And Karen? She was furious. Halfway through the festival, she came storming onto the property, red-faced and clutching her clipboard like she was about to smack someone with it. "This is completely unacceptable," she screeched. "You can't just turn your farm into a public spectacle." Liam leaned casually against a wooden post. "Oh, but I can. See, I checked the county laws. My property is fully zoned for agritourism." Karen's eye twitched. But the noise, the parking, the dash. All county approved. Liam grinned. "In fact, I might make this a weekly event." Karen looked like she was about to explode. With nothing left to argue, she stomped away, muttering under her breath about bringing this up with the HOA board. She didn't realize it yet, but her days were numbered. Karen had built her power in Crestwood Estates by intimidation. She ruled through fear, bullying residents into compliance with her absurd rules. But now, people were turning against her. The HOA board started questioning her decisions. Neighbors who once stayed silent were now openly mocking her. And then, the final straw. Someone inside the HOA leaked a stack of internal emails. Karen had been forging complaints. She had been filing fake reports under different names, making it look like half the neighborhood was against Liam when, in reality, it was just her. The HOA board called an emergency meeting, and that night, the unthinkable happened. Karen Whitmore, the queen of the HOA, was officially voted out. The next morning, a for sale sign appeared on her lawn. By the end of the month, she was gone. And Liam? He put up his own sign, right along the property line, where Crestwood Estates could see it every single day. "Welcome to Carter Farms, HOA free since 1923. It became a town landmark. And as Liam sat on his porch, sipping his coffee and listening to his roosters crow, he couldn't help but smile. Because in the end, Karen had started this war. But Liam? He finished it. Liam thought it was over. With Karen gone, her house up for sale, and the HOA in complete disarray, peace had finally returned to Carter Farms. No more fake complaints. No more county inspectors knocking on his door. No more ridiculous demands about repainting his barn or silencing his roosters. For the first time in months, he could wake up, step onto his porch, and just enjoy the morning without looking over his shoulder. But peace was a fragile thing. And it turned out that Karen, even after being run out of town, still had one last move to play. It started small. A few weeks after Karen's departure, Liam began noticing strange cars parked near the road at odd hours. He figured they were just nosy HOA members, curious about what had become of their fallen queen's arch-enemy. But then the cars kept coming. Different ones, different people, all of them sitting there for a while before driving off. Liam didn't think much of it, until one evening, while he was out checking on his livestock, he caught something even stranger. A drone. It hovered silently above his property, its small red light blinking in the fading sunlight. At first he thought it was some kid messing around, but when he walked toward it, the drone shot upward, zipping away in the direction of Crestwood Estates. That was weird. Then, the very next day, a man Liam had never seen before showed up near the fence line, holding a camera with a zoom lens. Liam walked right up to him. "You lost?" The man hesitated, lowering his camera slightly. Just, taking some photos." "Of what?" The guy shifted uncomfortably. Local properties. Just checking for any zoning concerns." Liam snorted. "You a county inspector?" The guy hesitated. I work with property assessments." Liam smirked. "Right. And I'm the King of England." Before the guy could make another excuse, Liam pulled out his phone and started dialing. "Sheriff's Department," he said casually. "Might want to let them know we got some suspicious activity going on out here." The guy bolted, didn't even try to explain himself, just turned and ran for his car like a scared rabbit. He tore out of there so fast he kicked up a cloud of dust in his wake. Liam stood there, watching the car disappear down the road, his mind racing. Karen was gone. But she wasn't done. Somehow, some way, she was still pulling strings from a distance. The next clue came in the form of a legal notice in his mailbox. Liam sighed the moment he saw it. The HOA letterhead was gone, but the nonsense inside was the same. Your property is under review for potential violations, including animal containment issues, improper fencing, and unauthorized agricultural activities. Liam smirked as he read through it. Animal containment? His livestock had never wandered outside his land. Improper fencing. His property lines were certified by the county. Unauthorized agriculture? He'd been farming here for decades without issue. It was all garbage. And attached to the letter, a set of photographs. Photos of his barn, his livestock, even a shot of him on his tractor. That sealed it. Karen wasn't personally behind this anymore. She didn't have the power, but she had found someone else to continue her fight. Someone new was trying to come after Carter Farms. Liam wasn't about to let that happen. The next morning, Liam got on the phone with Sheriff Tom Caldwell. Tom had known Liam's family for years. He'd already been fed up with the constant HOA nonsense from Crestwood, and now that Karen was gone, he'd thought things would finally settle down. But when Liam explained what was happening, the sheriff let out a frustrated sigh. You're telling me someone's been spying on you? Had a guy with a camera out here yesterday, Liam confirmed, and a drone. Then today I get a letter full of photos of my farm. Tom grumbled. This is getting ridiculous. Liam smirked. Yeah, well, welcome to my life. Tom was quiet for a second. Then, you got security cameras. Liam thought about it. Only near the house. Maybe it's time I added a few more. Do it, Tom said. And if that drone comes back, call me immediately. If someone's snooping around without permission, they're trespassing. Liam had no intention of playing defense anymore. Karen had lost, but her wannabe replacement needed to learn the same lesson. And Liam was about to teach it. That weekend, Liam made some upgrades. First, he installed several new security cameras, not just near the house, but around his property lines, his barn, even the entrance to his land. Then, he called in a favor from an old buddy who had experience with tracking drones. If that little buzzing piece of tech came back, Liam was going to find out exactly where it came from. It didn't take long. The drone returned the very next day, but this time, Liam was ready. As soon as it appeared, his friend activated a tracker, locking onto its signal. The drone lingered for a few minutes, snapping photos, then zipped away, heading back toward Crestwood, right into the backyard of a brand new house. Liam narrowed his eyes. So that was it. Karen's replacement. A few days later, Liam got confirmation. His friend had done some quiet digging, and the name attached to that house? Sandra Perkins, one of Karen's closest friends. She hadn't just moved into Crestwood. She had taken over the HOA. And just like that, the war that Liam thought was over. It had only just begun. But this time, Liam wasn't just going to fight back. He was going to end it, once and for all. Liam had hoped Karen was the last of his problems. But if Karen was the queen of HOA tyranny, Sandra Perkins was her heir to the throne. Unlike Karen, Sandra wasn't a loud, in-your-face enforcer. She was quieter, sneakier. Where Karen had stomped onto Liam's property demanding change, Sandra stayed in the shadows, pulling strings. She was smarter, and that made her more dangerous. The first sign of trouble came in the form of yet another cease and desist letter. This time, not from the HOA, but from a law firm in town. Liam opened it, scanned the legal jargon, and let out a low whistle. Sandra wasn't just throwing petty complaints at him. She was going for his land. The letter accused him of violating county agricultural zoning laws, failing to maintain proper land boundaries, and, Liam had to laugh at this one, operating a business without a commercial permit. He shook his head. She's trying to get me shut down. If Sandra had done her homework, she'd know that none of this was going to work. Liam's family had owned Carter Farms for over a century. His deeds, zoning permits, and land rights were rock solid. He had made sure of that after Karen had pulled her stunts. But Sandra wasn't counting on him winning this battle. She was counting on him getting tired. She was hoping the constant harassment, legal fees, and county inspections would wear him down until he finally caved and sold the farm. Too bad for her. Liam Carter didn't break that easy. The next day, Liam took the letter straight to his lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Martha Hendricks, who had been dealing with Crestwood Estates nonsense for years. Martha flipped through the papers, snorted, and tossed them onto her desk. "This is a joke." Liam smirked. "Glad we agree." "They're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks," she said. "And none of it's going to. So what's the move?" Martha leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her desk. "We don't just shut this down. We send a message." Liam liked the sound of that. By the end of the day, Sandra received a formal counter notice from Liam's lawyer, not only dismissing every baseless accusation, but threatening legal action if the HOA didn't stop harassing him. The ball was in Sandra's court now, and she had no idea what was coming next. Liam wasn't just playing defense anymore. He was going on the attack. First, he went straight to the county office and filed an official complaint against Crestwood Estates for misuse of authority and harassment of private landowners. The county was already sick of the HOA's nonsense after Karen's reign, so they took it very seriously. Then, Liam made a few calls. See, Crestwood Estates had a lot of skeletons in the closet. People in the neighborhood had been quietly suffering under the HOA for years. Ridiculous fines, absurd rules, and Karen's reign of terror. Now Sandra was trying to follow in her footsteps. But the thing about bullies. Once someone stands up, everyone else realizes they can too. And Liam had just become the guy standing up. Within a week, half the neighborhood was talking. People started leaking HOA emails. Old board members turned against Sandra. Residents began sharing their own horror stories. And then, the real blow came. A local journalist got wind of the story and started digging into the HOA's shady practices. Before Sandra knew it, an entire news article was published in the town's biggest paper. Homeowners or hostages? A look inside Crestwood Estates' HOA nightmare. It was a public relations disaster. Sandra had tried to get rid of Liam. Instead, she had put herself in the crosshairs. The final nail in the coffin came 2 weeks later. The HOA held an emergency meeting. The neighborhood was fed up. Board members who had been loyal to Karen and Sandra suddenly started jumping ship, realizing that their entire HOA was about to collapse under the weight of the scandal. Liam didn't even have to attend the meeting to know what happened. Linda Matthews, one of his inside allies in the HOA, sent him a text message that night. "Sandra's out. The whole board voted her out tonight. She tried to fight it, but she lost." Liam smiled. Karen had fallen. And now, so had her replacement. By the next morning, a for sale sign was planted in Sandra Perkins' yard. Just like Karen before her, she was leaving town. Crestwood Estates was never the same after that. With Sandra and Karen both gone, the HOA crumbled. The board was taken over by people who actually cared about the community, not just about controlling it. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood was free from its reign of terror. No more fines for absurd reasons. No more ridiculous rules. No more power-hungry dictators. As for Liam, his farm thrived. His weekly farm festivals became so popular that he eventually expanded them into a full-blown weekend market, attracting visitors from all over town. And Crestwood? They became some of his best customers. Even the new HOA leadership, the same people who had once been afraid of Karen and Sandra, started buying produce from Carter Farms. And Liam? He never let them forget. Right on the edge of his property, standing tall where everyone from Crestwood could see it, was the sign he had put up after Karen's downfall. And now, after everything, it stood stronger than ever. Welcome to Carter Farms. HOA-free since 1923. No Karens allowed. It became a local landmark, a reminder of what happened when entitled people pushed too far. Karen had started this war. Sandra had tried to continue it, but Liam? He ended it.